This week is the season finale for Andor, which has been one of the coolest Star Wars shows that I've seen in a very long time. I've enjoyed all of the Star Wars stuff that's come out of Disney Plus. I think it's just prestige television for me. I realize not everyone agrees with that, but Andor has proven to be sort of the cream of the crop in terms of storytelling because it's, for the first time in a long time, really just branching away completely from the Skywalker franchise in a way that The Mandalorian also did. Um, However, The Mandalorian still ties back into the Star Wars existing franchise with the Skywalker stuff because it has Grogu and Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano and a bunch of other characters that are part of that. Andor, on the other hand, doesn't have anything to do with Jedi. It doesn't have anything to do with the Force. It's just good people having to do bad things to survive in this oppressive state of the Empire. And it's just for that reason, it's one of the darkest, coolest shows I've ever seen. And while it's very sad that this Wednesday is going to be the last episode we get, it's also a day to celebrate because Andor season 2 starts shooting today, which is amazing. I have been fascinated with this show since it came out in the airways. Not only have I been just loving every minute of it, it's one of the first times in a very long time, because it's even as much as I've enjoyed Star Wars stuff from Disney Plus, I don't actively watch all of the documentaries and the interviews and things the way I used to when I was a kid. I used to have a subscription to Star Wars Insider, I think was the name of the magazine, for years. I went to the very first Star Wars celebration in Denver, Colorado, because I lived right there. It was 3 days of absolute fun. I blew like $700 on Legos and books and got to meet all sorts of cool actors, and it was just one of the most amazing experiences of my life. But I can remember back in the day poring over all of the details from those magazines and just salivating over everything around the Phantom Menace, the Clone Wars, and Into the Sith, and everything else. And I haven't really gotten that into it since then until Andor. Andor has got me pumped for Star Wars once again. And it's funny because every time a new show comes out on Disney Plus for the Star Wars series, my brother and I watch this stuff together, and we have our own takes on the shows that come out. But it was like Mandalorian came out, and we are like, oh my god, this is so cool! I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold. It was like just oh my god, and all the cameos that happened in the Mandalorian, and that sort of blew up Star Wars, right, on Disney Plus. And then we got the Book of Boba Fett, which was okay, but it was great. And then we got the Bad Batch, which was yeah, it was good. And then there was another season of Clone Wars, and then we got the Ahsoka Tano show's coming in the pipeline, and we've got season 2 of Mandalorian, and then we got all these shows that are coming out of Disney Plus, and then we got to the Obi-Wan show, which my brother and I were both like, oh my god, this is one of the coolest storytelling moments we've seen in Star Wars, because you have this broken man who feels like he was at one point in time one of the greatest Jedi of the Jedi Order, but he feels like he's the one responsible for the fall of the entire order. He feels like everything was his fault. He had to kill his best friend. And this is something that caused him to nearly become. I mean, that's something that would cause someone to be suicidal, but the only shred of hope he has left is to watch over this little boy. And he does so, and that's his like last thing that's giving him life, but he completely shuts himself off to the force, and he becomes this broken old hermit living off in the desert, just completely ruined and abandoning everything he's ever known. And a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's not my Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan would have never fallen like that. He was the best." Then you don't understand storytelling, sir or madam. You just don't. Because for me, Obi-Wan was just amazing storytelling all around the board. And then we got to Andor, and it was like, even as much as I loved Obi-Wan and Boba Fett and everything else, I didn't salivate over the production the way I have been for Andor. I've been watching all sorts of interviews and watching the set designs and all these other things. So when I saw this article pop up, I was really, really excited. I wanted to share it with people because I think it's a really cool look into what's coming in the pipeline with Star Wars Andor and the fact that filming shot today or started shooting today. So this is from earlier in November. Andor's creator Tony Gilroy confirmed the filming start date, but also confirmed that his brother Dan Gilroy and Beau Willimon would be returning to write the upcoming season. And I watched an interview that Beau Willimon was working on House of Cards, which I wasn't aware of. So there's some really interesting stuff here. So yeah, this article is talking about how Andor has broken a number of pre-established molds within the Star Wars universe, from delving into a much more mature and high-stakes plot to revealing early on that the series would just be 2 seasons, so it had a very limited start and end, and we already know what the end game looks like. Rogue One, everyone dies. It is what it is. But what they're doing is they're establishing the character of Andor leading up to Rogue One and saying, this is what it looks like to develop that character. And it is chef's kiss, just beautiful storytelling. And as I said, this is some of the darkest Star Wars we've ever seen, from the torture scene with Bix, where the Imperial agent, the doctor, is talking about how what they use is the screams of dying children from this alien planet that the Empire just wiped out and committed genocide on, and they took the screaming of the dying children and used that as a torture device. That is freaking dark. And then Luthen's character just, you know, what if I had to sacrifice everything? I am forced to use the the same strategies as my enemy to defeat my enemy, and I have completely burned my soul, and I've abandoned the sunshine, and I will never have kinship or love or anything else. And you're just sitting here going, oh my God, like, this is a man who understands the vileness of the empire and wants to take down, this. And it shows fascism, and it shows racism, and it shows all sorts of things. It's a great, great, great look at a much darker version of things than we've ever gotten before. Anyway, Gilroy revealed for season 2 that Ariel Kleiman, Janice Metz, and Alonso Ruiz Palacios would be joining to direct, but he also shared that production would be stirring up on the highly anticipated second season, which was November 21st. He confirmed this and said that the Monday for Thanksgiving, he said he would be flying out to London to be there for the first shot of the season before turning around and coming back home for the holiday. In addition to sharing the trio of directors that will be tasked with directing season 2's episode blocks, he also confirmed that Dan Gilroy and Beau Willimon would be returning to write the upcoming season, along with newcomer Tom Bissell, who is, according to Gilroy, a really cool and really, really interesting, versatile, really good writer, but also a very, very, very big Star Wars fan, which we wanted to make sure we had another of on the Pro, because we're going into Rogue One. So they're going to be, they have to shoehorn in everything that happened in season 1 into Rogue One. I think one of the brilliant things they did with season 1 of Andor was they broke it into blocks, even though the blocks weren't spanning years like the second season will. We had, I mean, arguably most people are saying that the biggest block of season 2 was the prison cell block. Like, literally, it was Prison Break in Star Wars, with Andy Serkis on board, and that was just, honestly, that's some of the best acting and storytelling I've seen in Star Wars in a very, very, very long time. It's, again, for me, as fun as The Mandalorian is, and as good as I thought the storytelling was with Obi-Wan Kenobi, this kicked it up a notch, and you're just seeing leaps and bounds in terms of what they're doing and creating prestige television with Star Wars as the franchise, and I'm really happy to see this. You can argue until you're blue in the face about what you didn't like about the new films that were directed by J.J. Abrams and Ryan Johnson. Everybody's got different opinions of those, and I can always say what I've always said. There's good Star Wars. Excuse me. There's a phrase that says all Star Wars is good Star Wars. It's just that some Star Wars is better than other Star Wars. And for me, a true fan is going to appreciate all Star Wars. They're not going to get hung up on, I hate that film because of this reason, because they didn't do this, and that's not my Obi-Wan. You're not a real fan. You're not a real fan. Unsubscribe from the channel if that offends you, because if you're not a real fan of the franchise, why are you here? Like, I love Star Wars. You need to love Star Wars. We can nitpick about the little things, but hey, at the end of the day, we should all be appreciating every type of Star Wars that comes out, even if we don't necessarily agree with all of it or think that it's the best. But I digress. Andor is awesome. I can't wait to see what they do for season 2. The fact they're breaking it up into multiple years, so the blocks are going to be covering, I believe there's 4 blocks, so it's 4 different years. And they've got a different director for each block of episodes. So I think it's 4 years. It might be 3, but I need to confirm that. But it is 3 or 4 years being broken into blocks. So we're getting either 3-year blocks or 4-year blocks, in the sense that 3 episodes or 4 episodes. But we're getting those years leading up to Rogue One. I can't wait for season 2. I just watched another interview, which I'd love to maybe share on this channel. The BBC did a sit down with all the cast members and Gilroy himself and really dove into all of the things that made season one so magical. And I found it a fascinating sit down interview. So stay tuned for that because I'll probably share it later in the week on this channel. In the meantime, don't forget, Wednesday, I'll be doing a watch party and a review of the Andor final episode on Wednesday here on my channel. So stay tuned for that because we'll be doing a live stream of the watch party and then we'll be doing the review after the fact. So stay tuned for all those things. In the meantime, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, do all the things you can to support the channel, like all of these amazing people if you like what you saw here today, because I stay on the air thanks to the contributions of all of these amazing people and folks like you. So drop a super thanks, do memberships, whatever you can afford to do is a great way to support. You can also do super chats anytime I'm live. I do a lot of video game stuff. There's also a Patreon page. Check it all out. We'll see you in the next episode. May the force be with you.